Hey guys, let's talk about the agents that affect the renin-angiotensin pathway. These are the objectives. I want you to be able to describe the pathway and how this affects the blood pressure and the volume of the blood, and then why does the AC inhibitors cause cough while it's not the case with the ARBs and the renin inhibitors, and then describe the rationale used for design the ACE inhibitors. Basically, you would mimic the angiotensin 1, okay, and then what structural features is responsible for the two common side effects in the case of the captopril, okay, um, which was the same structural feature actually responsible for the short duration for captopril, and then the reason for designing a prodrug for the enalapril, and the majority of actually all these products except Cerebril and captopril were designed as prodrugs. Why did we do that? And then unlike the yeah, we said that the Cerebril is the only one that is not need to be designed as a prodrug. Why is that? And then the rationale behind designing of the ARBs. Okay. Um, so and then um, again, why do we need to design them as prodrug? And then as you see, many times we try to mimic a protein, but we are not able to administer it orally. Why is that? And then list the advantages of renin inhibitors over the ACE inhibitors and the ARBs. Let's start by a quick overview of the renin-angiotensin pathway. First of all, there are three stimulants or three factors that affect the release of the renin from the kidney, and these factors are: the first one are hemodynamic signals. These are like signals such as the stretch of the veins or the arteries. So these are like physical signals that affect the release of the renin. And you have the neurogenic signals such as the chemical messengers that can affect the release of the renin. And we have also the hormonal signals that basically affects its release. And then when the renin is released, we have angiotensin 1, um, which is already in the blood, available at any time. So when the renin is released, it causes the formation of the angiotensin 2. And then angiotensin 2 is responsible for the following actions. It would increase the peripheral resistance, and therefore it would increase the blood pressure in a rapid or fast effect. And then it would also affect the function of the kidney by causing reabsorption of the sodium and water. So it would actually basically increase the volume of the blood. So, and this effect is a slow effect, and it's through this one here, through the aldosterone secretion. This one here is actually through the vasoconstriction. Okay, and then the third effect is it affects the heart and the vessels. So it affects, eventually with time, it affects the modeling, how the heart and the vessels are responding to these effects. Okay, so you can tell that the um, this pathway can have a long-term effect on the heart and on the vessels and the arteries. Okay, the next graph here I want to talk about is again the same pathway. The angiotensinogen is converted by the renin into angiotensin 1, which is converted into angiotensin 2 by the angiotensin converting enzyme, or for short the ACE enzyme. Another name for this enzyme is the kinase 2 enzyme. And then angiotensin 2 affects leads to the vasoconstriction, which increases the blood pressure. Okay, increases the peripheral resistance and the increased blood pressure. It also causes the secretion of the aldosterone, and then enhance the reabsorption of the water and sodium, and then causes water retention, increase of the volume of the blood, which also increases the blood pressure. But then also the same enzyme is responsible for the degradation of something called bradykinin, which is responsible for the prostaglandin synthesis, vasodilation, and bronchoconstriction. So the enzyme here is responsible for first the conversion of the angiotensin into angiotensin 1 into angiotensin 2, which leads to the increase in blood pressure, but it also is responsible for the degradation of a potent vasodilator. Okay, so by breaking this vasodilator, bradykinin, then you will have vasoconstriction again, and then you basically enhance the blood pressure, increase the blood pressure. So by preventing this enzyme, you can actually block two pathways here and then reduce the blood pressure. Another way to affect this pathway is through the renin, by inhibiting the renin enzyme, and then of course the third way is by inhibiting the binding of the angiotensin 2 to its receptors at the aldosterone and at the vessels. Okay. So I want you to think about the difference between inhibiting the enzyme, the angiotensin converting enzyme, and between blocking the receptors where angiotensin 2 binds to. Okay, so what's the difference between these two? If you remember the difference between um, the enzymes and receptors, then you should be able to tell. Basically, one of them is an enzyme that converts a drug, angiotensin 1 to another. So by preventing this enzyme, then you actually blocks the conversion. While in the other case, with the ARBs, you have receptors and you have drugs that compete with angiotensin 2 to these receptors, and then you block these receptors. Okay, the first class in this category of the angiotensin the drugs that affect the angiotensin renin pathway are the ACE inhibitors. Before we talk about ACE inhibitors, let's go in more details about talk about the synthesis of the angiotensin. First of all, angiotensin gene is a protein that has about 453 amino acids, and only 10 of these amino acids are being extracted out of this 453 amino acids using the renin enzyme. So the renin would cut these 10 amino acids from this whole large peptide chain. Okay, and then the angiotensin 1 is further reduced into angiotensin 2, which has only 8 amino acids, and it's from and the way the place where this occur is by cutting the bond between by breaking the bond between amino acids number 8 and 9. So by breaking the bond here, you end up having angiotensin 2 from angiotensin 1. So angiotensin 1 is from 1 to 10, but angiotensin 2 is from 1 to 8. Okay. And this structure here, this figure here shows again the same amino acids: proline, phenylalanine, histidine, and leucine, which are these four here: proline, phenylalanine, histidine, leucine. And this red line here shows where the bond is broken. So by understanding this mechanism and the interactions that occur between this part with the receptor, we could actually design drugs to compete with this part, the 4 amino acids involved here, and then basically bind to the enzyme ACE and inhibit it. Okay, so apparently there are actually 3 important interactions. One is an ionic interaction between the zinc, which is part of the enzyme, and the the carbonyl atom here. Okay, the carbonyl converts during the reaction into this negative oxygen by being attacked by the water molecule. So there's an ionic interaction. There's also a hydrogen bond here between the enzyme, the ACE enzyme, and the carbonyl. And there's a third kind of interaction, which is an ionic interaction between the N plus here, which is part of an amino acid, carboxylic acid here, which is at the end of that amino acid chain here. Okay. So, and there are also other binding sites for these R1, R3, and R2, which are part of the leucine, histidine, phenylalanine amino acids described here. So by understanding this mechanism, which we did by studying a natural substance called gibberellide, then we were able to synthesize something that competes for the angiotensin 1 and inhibits the enzyme. I want you to think about the fact that we were not able to use a peptide instead. Like why are we not able to use this natural substance, for example, or a peptide instead of synthesizing something to compete with the angiotensin? And the reason is because they are not orally available. Basically, if they are taken orally, the peptides are unstable in the stomach. If you the best example to consider is the insulin. Why is insulin still given by subcutaneous injection? They are not taken orally because they are protein in nature, and then they are broken. The bonds, the amide bond or the peptide bond is broken by the stomach by enzymes called amidases, or also known as peptidases. So keep that in mind, because this is a major problem in any proteins. Whenever we want to design something that's a protein, then problem is it cannot be taken orally. It has to be given, either IV or in this case with insulin, the injection, the subcutaneous injection. Okay. So by understanding the mechanism of reaction and the intermediate transition state for this reaction, we can synthesize something that would include these interactions here and compete with the angiotensin and block the enzyme. I want you to think about which of these enzymes, the renin or the angiotensin, has a more comprehensive way of inhibiting this pathway. Another way, which one do you think is more effective in preventing this pathway? Is it the ACE enzymes or the renin? Okay, keep that in mind. Okay, so based on the model that we described earlier and the interactions we have seen earlier with the natural substance, and based on understanding the transition states for the ACE enzyme when it interacts with the natural products, we have designed, or a model have been designed for the ACE inhibitors. So the model would include first the three type of interactions we described. You will always have ionic interaction here. This is the receptor. First of all, this is the receptor. It has positive charge. It has the carbonyl group here. It has a hydrogen bond here, and it has the zinc. So the three kind of interactions we talked about. In order to have these interactions available, we should have the carboxylic group as part of any of these drugs, the ACE inhibitors, such that this carboxylic is able to interact with the positive charge part of the receptor. And then we also would like to have the carbonyl group that will make a hydrogen bond. And then the third part is the one that's going to interact with the zinc, the ionic interaction. And this could be either a carbonyl, okay, it could be a sulfhydryl group, SH, or it could be a phosphonate, like POOH2, OH. So that's why you will have three classes of ACE inhibitors. For the sulfhydryl, we only have one example, which is captopril, which was the first drug that was developed in this subclass, the ACE inhibitor. And then we have the carboxylate, or also we call it dicarboxylate because it has one carboxylate group here and another here. So then we would have two carboxylates, and this represents the majority of the drugs in this class. There are 9 examples of them. The first one discovered was the enalapril. And then we have the phosphonates, which has only one example of it, which is the fosilipril. Obviously, from the name phosphonate, would have the phosphonates group. So let's talk about the first one. Okay, the first product that was discovered was was a sulfhydryl group actually that was called captopril. This shows the structure of the captopril. Again, it has the sulfhydryl group, it has the carboxylate, it has the carbonyl here, so it fulfills all these groups. So it's basically a potent drug. It makes all these three interactions. I forgot to mention that there are certain sites in the receptor that we could use to enhance the binding. In this case, we have the CH3 as one of them, and we have the propylene amino acid here that is interacting with this site. Anyway, so this was the first one that was discovered, captopril. However, it has a major side effects, two major side effects. One of them is skin rashes, and the other one is taste disturbances. So the metallic taste or the loss of the taste are mainly due to the presence of this sulfhydryl group. Okay, and in addition to that, this drug, it has a short duration of action, mainly because the sulfhydryl group forms dimers with the other sulfides groups and the amino acids, so it causes the loss of this activity. So we have three major problems. Two of them are the side effects, which is the skin rash and taste because of this group here, and taste disturbances. And then the third one is the fact that it's a short duration of action. So in fact, this drug is given more frequently. I think you can remember 2 or 3 or 4 times, I can't remember. But we'll see that very soon. Okay, so that was the first drug, but it's not preferred. I think it's still in the market, but it's rarely being prescribed. Okay, so let's talk about the next class of the ACE inhibitors, the dicarboxylates containing ACE inhibitors. Okay, so the next class is the dicarboxylate. So we removed the sulfhydryl group, and then we got rid of all these horrible effects, the skin rash, the taste disturbances, and the duration of action is now longer with the dicarboxylate ACE inhibitors. Okay, the first example or the first drug that was synthesized among this class was the enalapril. It has 2 carboxylate groups here. This is one, this is the other one. This makes it very ionized, and therefore it does not cross the gut wall. So we used a prodrug. So we designed a prodrug by adding an ester group here to make the drug more lipophilic. Okay, so this is an example of a prodrug where it's inactive in the inactive form, and then it's converted into the active form once it's get absorbed. And it relies on the esterase enzymes, which are not available except in the liver. So these conversion occurs in the liver. Sometimes esterases are able to convert the esterases that are in the blood, or sometimes in the intestine are able to do the conversion, but in this case it's in the liver. So it's absorbed, goes to the liver, converted to the active drug. Now in the case, if you administer this drug by IV, then you don't have to worry about creating a prodrug or giving a prodrug. You can immediately give the enalapril, which is actually true. You will see that there is a brand name called Vasotec IV, available as IV infusion. IV administration. So this Vasotec can be actually given immediately by IV, and it is the only one that is available through IV. All the others are taken orally. So enalapril is an example of one that's taken by IV. Okay. The next example in this class is the lisinopril, which is actually different by adding a lysine amino acid here, which is the reason why it's called lisinopril, because it has lysine. What's interesting about this molecule is the fact that although it is more hydrophilic, so by adding a lysine group, you have the positive charge. So you have one positive charge, you have the carboxylic group negative, carboxylic negative, and then of course there is an internal charge here, the positive charge here for the as part of the amino acids. So although it's more hydrophilic, it is still able to cross the gut wall, and there's a reason for that. So there's no need to esterify this drug, unlike the case of the enalaprilat. Okay, this drug is not designed in a prodrug form. Okay, the reason for that is it's believed that because the lysine is a long chain, it's able to make connection with this negative charge, and the positive charge here and the negative charge also are able to connect to each other, so they cancel each other and makes the drug less hydrophilic, and then they are able to cross the gut membrane and be absorbed, so they don't have to be designed as a drug. Okay. The rest of the dicarboxylate ACE inhibitors, these 7, all of them have to be esterified. All of them are designed as prodrugs to help their absorption. Okay, and there are like few differences among them as far as the potency, absorption, and so forth. So currently, the only products, the ACE inhibitors that are not prodrugs, are the captopril, because it's not ionized, it does not have any problem crossing the wall, the gut wall, and of course the other one is the cerebral. Okay, and the only one that can be given as an IV is the enalaprilat. It's not that could be given. It's the only one that's currently available in the market as an IV is the enalaprilat, which is vasotic. The others can be given as IV, but they are not marketed as an IV formulation. Okay. There's a note here that says all the ACE inhibitors have optimal activity when their stereochemistry matches that of the amino acid. Of course, remember we designed these molecules to mimic the angiotensin 1, okay, to compete with it, angiotensin 1 over the angiotensin converting enzyme. And angiotensin 1 is a natural substance, and the amino acids in that molecules are designed such that they are in the L isomer form. So therefore the isomerism for these molecules matter, so you will always see that when isomer is active the other is not. Okay. The third example of the ACE inhibitors, or the third subclass of the ACE inhibitors, is the phosphonates containing ACE inhibitors. Basically it has the phosphonate group here, and just like the dicarboxylate, it's also hydrophilic. It has poor oral absorption. It has to be therefore designed with an ester, basically a prodrug, and then the ester breaks into the intestinal wall or in the liver. Okay, so it could be broken in any of these two places and to produce the active products. Okay, so remember with the dicarboxylates containing ACE inhibitors, the ester was working on only into the liver. Okay, and then the pharmacokinetic properties for the ACE inhibitors. This is just a comparison between them. So, for example, as far as the effect of the food, the food would affect the pH of the stomach, and then the ionization, percentage of ionization will be affected due to that, and of course the absorption will be affected. Now for some of them the food might only slow the absorption, so instead of taking for example an hour or two, it might take longer, but for others the food would actually reduce the absorption. Okay, so just keep that in mind. And then of course, since majority of them are eliminated by the kidney, so all of them except for the fosinipril and the spiropril. Here is the spiropril and the fosinipril, which is here. They do not need adjustment in case of renal function, although 50% is still eliminated by the renal, but this is like this, the smallest percent among all of them. Like for example, this one here, ramipril, 60% eliminated by the kidney. So this is high, I guess, considered significant, more significant than the 50%. So I guess the clinical data will show that these two, cerebrospinal and spinal, do not need adjustment in the case of renal impairment. One important aspect here is, remember with the dicarboxylates containing ACE inhibitors, we had to wait for the liver to activate those prodrugs. Now it was found that in case of the liver failure, these enzymes, these traces, are not functioning, so they are not able to convert the prodrug into its active form, which impacts the activity of these drugs. So this is something to keep in mind. Okay. Notice here that the one that has the shortest duration of action is actually the captopril. Okay, and that's why it's administered 3 times a day. Okay, so on average, the duration of action is 8 hours, so it's given 3 times a day. All the others are 24 hours. Now, of course, with the enalaprilat, it's given by IV, so then it's basically administered continuously, and we don't have to worry about how often you administer this drug. Okay. The last thing we want to talk about in this class of drugs, the ACE inhibitors, is the adverse effects and the drug interactions. The main adverse effect for this class of drug is cough, mainly due to the fact that the ACE inhibitors are responsible for, the ACE enzymes are responsible for the degradation of the bradykinin, which when we have excess amount of the bradykinin, you will have bronchoconstriction. Also, bradykinin stimulates the synthesis of prostaglandin, so these two effects together, they cause the cough. Now think about the ARBs and the renin inhibitors. Do they cause cough as a side effect or not? Okay. Notice that the percentage of people who can develop the cough is from 5 to 20%, which is significant percentage. Okay. And finally, just wanna be, just a note that the ACE inhibitors are contraindicated during pregnancy. Although there is not teratogenic effect during the first trimester, there has been some issues with the second and third trimester. Other adverse effects are, of course, hypertension, because it's a anti-hypertension drug. Hyperkalemia, of course, the cough and rash and taste disturbances, which occur with the captopril mainly, but there are rare incidents of rash and taste disturbances that occur with the other ones that do not have the sulfhydryl group, and there are some other effects. I think the angioedema was among the unique ones as well. And then we have some drug-drug interactions among them. I'm going to let you just read these by yourself. Basically, they are through the either metabolism of through the metabolic enzymes. So these are just some information for your own sake. You don't have to memorize them. Okay. Okay. Next, we'll talk about the angiotensin 2 receptor blockers. As I explained earlier, these are compounds that they block the receptor instead of inhibiting the enzyme. So they basically compete with angiotensin 2. So in order to design these blockers, we create something that is similar to angiotensin 2. Initially, a natural product called saralazine was actually found to have ability to reduce the blood pressure, and then was found to be competing with the angiotensin 2 on this angiotensin enzyme. And then after further study of this product or something similar, another product that was derived from the cerulacin. So by comparing this to the angiotensin 2, we were able to create a model, and then from this model we discovered the losartan. Losartan was the first ARB. I wanted to say that there are two kinds of receptors, angiotensin 1 and 2, and these ARBs, they work by blocking angiotensin 1. The angiotensin 2 receptor is not well understood, and the selectivity for angiotensin 1 by the ARBs are like 10,000 or something. The advantage of using the ARBs are basically they do not have the side effects associated with the ACI inhibitors, which is mainly the cough, and I believe the second one is angiotensin. Anyway, so and then approximately 14% of the losartan is actually metabolized into an active form. Okay, so it's a non-competitive antagonist. It does not compete with the binding site. It probably works at the allosteric site. Anyway, so it produces another metabolite which is active, and both the original molecule and its metabolite are responsible for the the pharmacological effects for this drug. So the question for you is, does this make losartan a prodrug? Well, if it's active in the first place and it's converted into another active metabolite, then it is not a prodrug, because the definition of prodrug is for the drug to be inactive and then it's converted into the active form. Okay. And then after the losartan was discovered, further drugs were being designed as well by using isosteric replacement. I hope you still remember the definition of an isoster and a bioisoster. Basically replacing a group, a chemical group with another one, and that has a similar chemical activity, similar chemical and physical feature, and then by testing these molecules we were able to find ones that are better. There were 3 of these ARBs that have to be designed as prodrugs because they are not lipophilic enough, just like with the ACE inhibitors. They were not lipophilic enough, so we designed them as prodrugs, esterases, by using an ester group. And these are the candesartan, silicethyl, the olmesartan, midomoxil, and the azilsartan midoxamil. So all these contain an ester group, and they rely on the esterase, which is actually present in the intestine, I believe. Yes, in the intestine wall. So this is an advantage because before they reach the blood, they have already metabolized into the active form. Okay. Pharmacokinetic properties for the ARBs. Food reduces absorption of them, but not significantly, so they can be taken with or without food. And all of them except the olmesartan, they are eliminated via the fecal route. So in the case of kidney in the case of renal failure, we don't have to worry about adjustment like the majority of the drugs here. Okay. The last class in this lecture is the renin inhibitors. The unique thing about renin inhibitors is that it's the primary route for the inhibition of all the angiotensin, so it should be more comprehensive and more effective. Besides, it was found that if we use the ACE inhibitors and the ARBs, this causes a compensatory increase. It's like a feedback that leads to the increase of the concentration of the enzyme renin that is released, and this can reduce the effect of these products that works on the ACE inhibitor, on the ACE, and that blocks the receptor. While in the case of the renin, if you inhibit the renin enzyme, then the effect is more significant. The reason there is a delay in the discovery of drugs that affect the renin is because of the presence of the successful drugs like the ARBs. Okay, but recently the L-scarine, which was discovered in 2007, have been showing some good and advantageous results. Besides the fact that it does not cause dry cough or angioedema, because it does not affect the prostaglandin or the bradykinin. Okay. And then, of course, the design of this drug relies on the fact that renin breaks the angiotensin gene into angiotensin 1, so we would mimic the part of the angiotensin gene that is broken by the renin. We have something like that. And of course, we are not able to use a peptide again for the same reason. to be taken orally because it would be degraded by the peptidases and amylases with lying in the stomach. Okay, pharmacokinetic properties for this product: it has poor bioavailability, about 90% is eliminated in the feces. Okay, only 2.5% is the bioavailability. So it's mainly cleared through the hepatobiliary tract. Um, remember the mature hepatic cycle. So this drug is eliminated through that route, and then the high-fat meals decrease its absorption. But then there is no adjustment needed for renal failure because again it's eliminated by the liver. So in case of renal failure, there is no need for adjustment. Okay. Finally, some caution should be taken only in the case of a severe